Hi, my name is Sydney, and in this video I will be answering the question on how respiration helps us produce speech with reference to the relevant anatomy and physiology of the respiratory system. First, respiration is defined as the exchange of gas between an organism and its environment. So respiration has two parts: inspiration, which involves bringing oxygen to the body's cells by breathing in, and expiration, which involves eliminating carbon dioxide from the body's cells by breathing out. So, according to Boyle's law, as the volume of the lungs increases, air pressure within the lungs decreases, and vice versa. With that being said, air pressure does not need to be equal inside and outside of the lungs. Does need to be equal inside and outside of the lungs. The respiratory passageway consists of the oral and nasal cavities, the larynx and the trachea, and the bronchial tube and trees. The bronchial tree and tubes. There are also protective structures such as the ribs, vertebrae, and sternum. The ribs elevate during inspiration and slope downward during rest. They protect the lungs. The vertebrae support the abdominal muscles and are the basis for respiratory framework. The sternum is the point of attachment for the ribs. As for the respiratory passageway, the trachea splits off into the mainstem bronchi to get air to the lungs, while simultaneously acts as the safeguard against pollutants. The bronchial tree branches from large tubes into smaller tubes to get air into the lungs. The diaphragm, however, is the primary muscle of inspiration. It separates the thorax from the abdomen and contracts and expands through the breathing cycle. The larynx houses the vocal cords. The vocal folds. The vocal folds remain open when inspiring. When producing speech, the vocal folds are closed, but they're vibrating together to produce sound. This is why we do not breathe when we are speaking. So, in conclusion, there are many steps that go into producing sound, one of the main steps being respiration, since we do need it to survive. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Jordan, and I'm just going to be touching a little more on respiration and how it pertains to speech. So, respiration is the exchange of gas between an organism and its environment. This is done through a process of inspiration and expiration. So, like Sydney discussed, there are many different components of anatomy that go into producing speech. Along with the anatomy comes the physiology of respiration. We need respiration in order to produce sound. There are three components that go into the physiology of respiration. These are volumes, capacities, and pressures. Respiration requires the balance of pressures and also includes several different volumes and capacities. In a normal respiratory cycle, inhalation takes up to 40% of the cycle, whereas expiration takes up to 60% of the cycle. The respiratory cycle, however, during speech is vastly different. In this case, inspiration takes up to 10% of the cycle, whereas expiration takes up to 90% of the cycle. Checking action allows us to modify airflow during speech. So this is how we are able to speak 1 to 2 sentences on one breath, whereas we breathe much quicker when we are resting and not speaking. Body posture is also an important component of respiration. When you aren't sitting with good posture, this causes you to be unable to completely inflate your lungs, which in turn affects your capability to speak. Overall, if you are unable to breathe and respire at a normal capacity, it makes it nearly impossible to efficiently produce speech. This is why respiration is essential to speech.